All right, hello everybody. We have some more drawing here, and I thought I would just tell you a story while I draw. Um, let me think of one for you. Let's see here. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who every day would go down to the river, and he had little shoes entirely made of bricks, and they were heavy, and he walked heavily and wore down a significant path from his hut down to the river and back again every day. And there at the river, early every morning before most of the other people in the village woke up, he would tickle the ripples of the water with his fingertips and see if any of the little fishes would come up to play. And most of the time, none of them did, so he would break off a little chunk of his heavy brick shoes and throw them in there. But bricks don't make very good fish food. And so he would try picking up a few pieces of dirt or gravel from the riverside and throw them in there and see if any of the little fishes would come up for those. But dirt and gravel don't make very good fish food either. So he would tickle the ripples a little bit more, and every now and then, though, a curious fish would come up just to see what the commotion was at the edge of the water, and it would get really close to his fingertips, and that would make him really happy and make his little morning trip down to the river all worthwhile, and that made him happy, and the rest of his day would be a lot better just for it. He would go home, and by the time he got back home, his mom would be making him some corn porridge with very thinly sliced strawberries on top, which he really liked, the strawberries at least. It made the porridge palatable for him, and the porridge stuck to his ribs, as it were, and got him through the rest of the day. He was too young to go to school yet. In his part of the world, you didn't go to school until you were 12 years old, and he was only 8. So he would just go run around all the time, looking under rocks and behind trees to see what was there. Lots of times he just found more rocks under the rocks and more trees behind the trees. But sometimes he found a rock behind a tree, or, well, every now and then a tree under a rock, if he was really lucky. Anyways, one day, when he was looking behind a tree, he found something that was neither a tree or a rock. He found a weird little 7-armed animal, furry, with 3 eyes, and a little horn in the middle of its head. It made a weird little gurgling noise. It was about the same size as he was, and they both looked at each other, kind of like this, and a little bit like this. And they both took a step back, and looked at each other a little bit more like this, and then they both took a little step forward. And then the little creature ran off, galumphing on all 7 of its legs, a really irregular but efficient stride. He went home that day for dinner, which was squash porridge with very carefully, thinly sliced bananas on top, which he liked okay. The thinly sliced bananas, at least. It made the rest of the squash porridge edible to him. And it stuck to his ribs and kept him full through the night. He tossed and turned a lot during the nights, and so that burned a lot of calories, so he needed a lot of good food to get through the nights. His mom and his dad and his sisters and brothers none of them believed him when he told this story about the seven-legged creature with three eyes and a little horn. Where they came from, in their world, all the creatures there all had 5 legs, and nobody had ever heard of any creature with 7 legs and 3 eyes. Highly irregular. So, time went on, as usual, and he was 11 years old, and he was getting excited about getting ready to go to school the next year. He had never seen this creature again, and he was starting to think that maybe it had all been a dream, until one day he was going down to the river again one morning. By this time, his heavy brick shoes had worn a very deep path. He was almost walking down through a ditch every morning. It was so deep it was going all the way up to his waist. It was very inconvenient almost, but that's how we do sometimes. We get into our habits and it's hard to get out of them. Sometimes when it rained really hard, he would find himself walking down through a deluge of rainwater in his path that he had made with his heavy brick shoes. Now, they were kind of rounded off to look like clogs. He had thrown so many chipped corners off of them into the river to try to attract the fish. But he was down here one morning again, and he threw a chip of brick off his shoes into the water. And a furry arm lashed out of the water and grabbed his shoe brick crumb out of the air right before it hit the surface of the water. And the little mouth came up out of the water and ate it. It's the first time anything had acted like his shoes were tasty. First time anything had ever appreciated his offering of shoe crumbs. And then the rest of the creature came out of the water, and there it was, the 7-legged thing. This time, it also had brick shoes on all 7 of its legs, and brick glasses on all 3 of its eyes, and a little brick bow on its horn. And it sat there on the side of the shore, right next to him, and started chipping little chunks off of its shoes. And it had a lot of chunks to chip because it had so many brick shoes. And it started throwing them in the water with him. And no fish came for its little chips or chunks either. But he was encouraged by that. And because of that, I think the rest of his life was okay. Huh? The end. Okay. All right, goodbye, everybody. Thought